Hello everyone, Kirby1 here, and today we're going to be presenting you with a little bit of an unorthodox recording session for Dominions 5. Unorthodox in a great number of different ways. First of all, you may not recognize any of these flags. Second of all, we're starting my recording with 2 players already defeated. For anyone who may have caught my live streams a couple of weeks ago or maybe gone back and watched those after the fact, congratulations of sitting through 6 hours of me sometimes narrating. And if not, I don't blame you. There's quite a lot to sift through and not necessarily a whole lot of content, but it was enjoyable for me. We were playing a blitz, and I was invited to join, and we had a number of people from the Lucid Discord community who are in that, and some of them may or may not also put up their version of accounts of this particular game. In any event, let's go through the list of players and nations. And the reason I say nations is because each of these nations here were made with the NatGen mod. For any of you who are familiar with that, that basically is a procedurally generating mod that just creates nations for you with mages and with sacred units and stuff like that. Creating sprites and creating stats for them. And then with the exception of this last one, which is a mod nation that was made by a particular person. I am not familiar with whom off the top of my head, but it's basically a nation of clowns. Lucid actually did a sort of breakdown video of a lot of the aspects of this particular nation, and this was his opportunity to play with them. It did not particularly go well for him, and part of that probably lies in the fact that we all took ridiculously overpowered NatGen nations and just threw them at each other, and Lucid was sort of stuck in the middle of that. So anyways, starting from the bottom, Lucid Tactics playing Barnum Bailey and Clowns, the pretender of the Clown Nation. I won't really go into this one in depth, partly because they've been knocked out of the game, and partly because, well, Lucid did his own version of it, and that's going to be a lot of effort to go through all of these, especially they all have their own lore, special rules, etc. So let's just go from the bottom. Horny Boy was the god of Monoros, and Monoros was a very interesting nation. I say was because unfortunately they've been knocked out, and I say unfortunately even though I was the one who wound up killing them. Their cap is right over here under the blue flag of my particular nation. But let's go over them real quick because they were pretty cool, and I think it was probably for the best that I knocked them out early. One of their excuse me, defining aspect is actually that they had these communion slaves right here. So they had stealthy communion slave units, very much like how MA Pythium has, except for Pythiums are not stealthy. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head how expensive they were, but that's a very interesting aspect of this particular nation. And they do have a lot of astral and death, so these guys are kind of like a combination Scalaria Pythium, because they also have nature thrown in here, plus a lot of very interesting randoms. And so this turned into a very, very unfortunate situation where I was marching up on their cap right around the time when they had Horde of Skeletons and a crap ton of these guys. By the way, are not are not limited to cap only recruitment. They are limited recruitment. I don't know what the limit is, but I guess they can only make a couple of them, but not cap only. So if they had more forts, they would be able to make more of them. But Yeah, and they all had swamp survival too, and so his capital was on a swamp, and he was going to be spamming out these hordes of skeletons, and so I had to wait a couple of turns to get enough magic online to be able to bypass that. In addition, he had these very, very powerful, heavily armored Berserk Trampler Sacreds here as some frontline shock troopers here. So this was a very interesting, very difficult nation to sort of punch through. And if they had been a little bit larger and gotten a little bit more stability under them, they would have presented a serious problem. They were played by the player TRHMC, who is a common member on Lucid's Discord channel. So good game, Horny Boy. Unfortunately, I knocked you out earlier than expected, but I suppose since the game is still going, you probably don't mind too much that you're one game less that you have to deal with. Who's next? Next we have Minipiro. Minipiro is played by Prof. JB, another veteran of Lucid's Discord. Minipiro is a sort of hybrid, what are these guys? Tengu and human nation. They have a lot of heavy cavalry. Yeah, I think heavy cavalry, because their prot is pretty decent, especially this guy. They don't all have lances though, so this heavy cavalry doesn't have lances, and he doesn't have a shield either. That's very weird. But this is what I mean by sort of procedurally generated nations. And then their Tengu unit is sacred. All Tengu's defining features are that they are sort of Japanese themed, so they have nodachis or katanas or stuff like that as weapons, samurai armor, which can typically be pretty high protection. They will not likely have a shield, and they have this lightning strike attack, which only has ammunition of 1, so that you do a hold attack and they shoot a lightning bolt at you and then fly attack you. And then they have, these guys in particular have storm power as well, and they're all flying. Aside from that, he has some crossbow humans, some bowman humans, some unarmored guys, probably not recruiting a whole lot of those, but I don't recall off the top of my head. Flying scouts, so that's cool, a bit on the expensive side. And then for magic, they have earth and blood, and then some minor air and nature in there as well. And only Holy 2 priest, it looks like. Yeah, max Holy 2 priest. And then these guys can be pretty good thugs if you just sort of had them running around with everybody. His particular nation, the actual sticky point for me, is that he has access to the pretender list for Eastern nations, and that includes the Devi of Darkness, which is what he wound up taking. So I've been sort of struggling, as I do. It's a pretty common struggle of mine to deal with super combatant chassis. So that's on my to-do list. But that's what he has running around, causing me grief pretty much at this point, is the Devi of Darkness with a lot of super combatant gear. I've sort of been trying to avoid him and keep him contained over the course of this game. So that's Minipiro. Here we have the next challenge, major challenge to my nation. This would be pronounced Xisikos. I'm not entirely sure. We're gonna just pretend like it's not. We're not gonna go with what their nation name is and call them the Duskwalkers, because their main attribute of this nation is that they are undead Duskwalkers. What Duskwalkers are is they're very uncommon in vanilla dominions, but they're very powerful in Nat Gen. So you'll often see in Nat Gen Dustwalkers banned. they have part of that is actually because they have very common cheap recruitable Holy One reanimators, which in this case actually apparently are not particularly cheap. I guess this guy's sort of cheap. He's 90 gold. So they wind up being sort of the Scalaria version. But they already are, but the thing is they start undead. So, for Duskwalkers, they're basically like Abyssian skeletons. They all have heat aura and heat power. So they're very, very strong. The trade-off is that they lose cold resistance and they lose the ability to be amphibious. So, you win some, you lose some, I guess, but very often people wind up banning these guys, and for good reason, as you'll wind up seeing over the course of this game, and also if you go into the blitz live streams that I did. This nation is being played by iFlight, who hosted the game for us. Very, very active on the Lucid's Discord community. I've played a number of games. I've played a number of games, honestly, with all these people at this point. So I think we're pretty familiar with each other. So this particular nation, let's see, it has a lot of human infantry as well, which have fire resistance, so they can be thrown right in the mix with these Dustwalkers with heat aura. So his sacred unit is these Ravagers of the Flame, and they're only 50 gold, very, very high in recruitment points. So you need lots of good scales for these guys, but you also want a pretty massive bless. They have a broadsword of fear, which is not magic damage, but it does cause lesser fear. With which, I guess it does have a magic attack or damage effect, extra effect on damage. So you have to damage first, and then if you do damage, it'll also proc this extra magic damage, which does a lesser fear effect. I'm not sure how this would interact 100% with something like Mist Form, because, well, I suppose you'll still do 1 damage with Mist Form, and then with the magic damage you'll pop the Mist Form. So, but it doesn't really matter. I don't actually have, none of us have Mist Form at this point in the game, I think. No major air nations. In any event, he has pierce resistance just right off the bat. Firepower, so in heat, all his stats are going to go up by 3. And he has a very impressive bless as well. 25 hit points, that's very, very beefy. Protection 17 plus a tower shield, so this guy is just tanky as all heck. And so it's very hard to kill. Plus, since he's undead, you can take something like an Undying Bless and basically double his hit points. He won't die at the end of the battle if he goes negative. So just lots of downside. You can throw up things like Rigor Mortis, which his nation can do because he has Death Mages in communions. Bad news all around. Basically, what I've had to deal with is front line of these guys, back line of communion mages with death and heat, and just throwing up things like Heat from Hell and Rigor Mortis, and it's been a bad time for me. Even if all of his mages die, these guys are just so incredibly hard to kill. There's been no amount of dust to dust and cleansing waters and banishment spam that I can do that seems to knock these guys out of a battle. Very, very hard to kill. I guess these guys are also undead heat power tramplers. Very high defense skill. I haven't seen these, but this would be very interesting to also throw into the mix. Size 4, so you can trample a lot of stuff with that. Anyways, yeah, so as far as randoms, this guy also has access to, well, basically all of the paths he already has, I guess, here. So these guys are slow to recruit, but they can you can get a lot of high path mages here. Let's see. Yeah, this would be his communion slave right here, I guess. Yeah, so tough cookies right here. So that's been my struggle bus. Hope you brought Cold 3, and I don't think any of us did. Maybe, I think Lucid did. But I unfortunately brought Heat 3 because I was not paying attention to what everyone else was taking for their nations when they picked them. This is my nation. We'll get to me last. The other player who we have here is Grippa for life. He is playing basically an elf nation. Lots of glamour cav here. He also has storm power. A built-in air shield. That's actually really strong on elves because one of the ways to get rid of glamour is with mass arrow fire, javelins and stuff like that. So that's just like straight up free buff right here. 3 attacks, none of them a lance, but a magic attack. So there's that. Ridiculously expensive compared to some of the other options that are in the game, in this particular game, I mean. Very high recruitment point cost, almost 100 gold. In addition, you have size 6 spider glamour cavalry, which I think, yeah, the spider will persist even if the rider dies, which will probably add like another 50 hit points on top of everything. And it, oh, he can't, yeah, so he can only be recruited in the cavalry. Not sacred, so you won't get whatever mean bless Grippa wound up taking, which I don't remember off the top of my head. Flying elf cav, so yay, with a lance. And then more flying cav. Tiger riding elf cav, because you haven't got enough animals that they're riding already, I guess. This is just I didn't really look at these guys a whole lot, but this is really cool thematically. They're all very expensive recruitment points. I mean, you'd need to max out your order scales in order to get any of these guys pretty much, but very cool. Walking elves, I guess. And then, yeah, they're basically every single one of his unit lineup has glamour. He has a flying 100 gold scout spy, and the spies with sailing, yay. The spies, because they're spies and they're flying, they can cause unrest. This is actually how Grippa wound up starting his war with Lucid, is that he flew a bunch of his scout spies to Lucid's capital and just started creating unrest there, turn like 2, and was just basically pissing Lucid off, so they got into a war there. Bunch of different flying leaders here. Holy 2 with that guy. And then he has air magic. Not very high air magic. This one's air 2. Let's see how high he goes. Oh, he has a recruitable Holy 3, so that's great. Okay, so he can get up to air 4. That's pretty much the breaking point for air. Yeah, slow to recruit in his capital. So there you go. Very interesting elf cavalry nation. He unfortunately has not been doing particularly well this game. As you can see from the map, he has these 3 provinces. One of them is his cap, because it wouldn't be Grippa if you weren't down to his capital. Let's see. So the last one is me. And I am in a pretty strong position as one of the contenders to perhaps win this game. And if I do this, well, I haven't yet by the time I'm recording this, but if I do, then that would also be a little bit of an unorthodox approach to my channel, because I haven't posted a video series yet to date that I've actually won. So if I do win, fingers crossed, then it will be a first for Kirby's channel. For my lineup, I have crabs and ogres. And crabs are another one of those nations that, if they're not banned in NatGen, and they might have been nerfed in the latest patch for one of the for the NatGen mod, but if they're not banned, they probably should be. Crabs are ridiculously cheap for what you get. This is the strongest one that I can recruit right here. 9 recruitment points, as you recall, compared to Grippa's 72 for his Elf Cav. 25 hit points and 21 protection, most of that because it's natural protection. Apparently crabs' hard shells give them base natural protection. Now with this kind of level of protection, you would normally also have a really ridiculously high resource cost, but you don't because it's natural protection. It's not it's just bronze scale hallbark, which is giving him 12, but I have 21 protection on this guy. So that's already, for starters, ridiculous. Amphibious, obviously, because they're crabs. And then 2 attacks, one of them being a untyped armor-piercing attack from the pincer, which deals 16 damage, which all crabs have. Yeah, all of them have that. So that's why these guys are basically broken. And he's 20 gold. So now, he doesn't have a lot of resistances. He doesn't have like fire resist or shock resist or anything like that. But if you had sacred crabs, if you were just like, make me a NatGen nation with crabs, just crabs, sacred crabs, crab mages, all that stuff, you could get some ridiculous combos on top of this really broken chassis. So be wary of somebody wanting to play crabs in a NatGen game. They are very strong. And crabs basically wound up being my main expansion forces and my frontline infantry, my frontline non-sacred infantry. Because if you compare these guys up, this is like my strongest crab unit right here. And then this would be my strongest ogre unit. 21 protection, same. 1 attack, length 4, which is a little bit longer, but I mean, you're already losing the untyped 16 armor piercing attack, so there's that. Only 3 higher hit points, but look at the comparisons. This is 34 resources versus 14. Not amphibious, 14 recruitment points, so it's just not better, like, at all, compared to the crabs. So I've basically been recruiting these two, not the glaive ones so much, though they would be doing more damage, I guess. But yeah, it's fine. It's whatevs. Mostly these guys because they have higher protection, and basically none of the ogres. Like, you very rarely see them in my troop lineup. Again, crab generals for leading them underwater. Let me go over my sacreds real quick. So my sacreds were very cool. They have a magic attack, so for 25, hitting for 25 damage. They're a little bit expensive, but that's okay because they're cap only. So I'll just be recruiting these guys, as many as I can, out of my cap, and then crabs everywhere else. Decent protection, which goes up by 1 more once they go berserk. Berserk, which means that they won't rout once they're in battle. Sacred, and my bless that I wound up taking on these guys was Undying, Blood Bond, Awe, and Undead Leadership for moving skeletons around. And the reason I say skeletons is because for my nation is a nation of reanimators. So priests are weak but can reanimate dead. And by weak, that means they're only, the highest I have is holy level 1. This is already my mage lineup here. So, and also they're kind of expensive. I didn't actually pay attention to this when I was generating this or chose this nation, but my air quotes Scalarian reanimators, because they're commander point 1, wound up being a little bit expensive, and so I couldn't really mass them as much as a Scalaria would. But if you're looking at it from the pretender screen here, you're not going to see it. It's not going to show up because it is a national ability. So let's see if I can find one of my guys right here. So he has the ability to reanimate ghouls, soulless, or long dead. And the same with my cap-only mages, which I don't know if I have any. There's some over here. Let's see, this guy. So yeah, anybody basically with priest levels, which includes my prophet, by the way. My prophet can also reanimate at holy level 3. And I suppose if I made like if I made holy boosters, I could do that as well. So that was basically one of the kickers, but I wound up using undead not a whole lot, mostly crabs, to be honest, plus these guys. And then my mage lineup is, this is just another commander, by the way, which, by the way, 80 leadership and crab general, 80 leadership. So, like, literally no reason to make these guys for any reason ever. My mage lineup has been a bunch of priests for reanimating, just whenever I can make them. Water 1, Death 1. Meh. But these guys can do Frozen Heart, and they can do Dust to Dust, which both of which are going to be useful to me in this particular end game situation versus the super combatant Devi of Darkness, and then also the Dust Walkers. Then we've got Water 2, Death 2. They are old, and I have no idea why they have ambidextrous, but they do. And these guys are Horde of Skeletons. These guys can do water elementals too if I wanted. Rain, they can do rain for getting rid of that heat aura and knocking out those high fire casters. So good stuff. These guys are pretty decent battle mages in the situations that I've needed them. I also have cap only, heavily armored for some reason, which means that their encumbrance is a little high. Nature 2 and Water 2. These guys can provide a little bit of flexibility with the nature cross path, but I haven't really made a lot of them because they are cap only. And so I have a couple of them around, but not really making a whole lot of use of them. And then my cap only has been very interesting. They have Fear, which I don't think has ever come into play because they're supposed to be backline mages. But they're Death 3 off the bat and Water 1. And then they random Blood and Water, Death, and Air. Air has been pretty important because the air ones, basically, as soon as I get an air random, I twice born him. And then they're my Wailing Winds casters. And I've been using Wailing Winds in a lot of battles. And that has been basically been carrying me because Wailing Winds is overpowered. So there you have it. Blood, I haven't really wound up getting into a whole lot. But oh well. They're kind of expensive, slow to recruit, cap only. So there you go. That would be the nation. Akatokawa. Another defining feature of this nation is that because it's a Yomi Bakemono, aka Japanese themed nation, I actually get a lot of the Oni summons for Japan. So I get Aoni, which are amazing in my Dominion because I took Turmoil, because I was like, oh, I have Oni, I should take Turmoil. That seems like a great idea. Oni, Aoni I can summon basically with any of my mages because it's just Water 1, Death 1 for 10 water gems. That's pretty amazing. Akaoni, less useful. As you saw, I don't really have a whole lot of fire, but I did take fire on my Pretender because I have the Awe Bless. Shikomi have also been fantastic because Shikomi have 2 attacks, which are Ghost Rending Claws, and Ghost Rending Claws halt undead, have an extra halt undead effect. So pretty cool to have them in my front line, plus they're sacred. So they get, and berserking, so they fit in very well with my shock troop sacreds. in basically all forms. We can do ghost generals, which I have not really done a whole lot of. Now, some of these blue spells here are also from Logi's Magic Gen mod, which is a variation off the idea of Nat Gen, and it is basically instead of randomly procedurally generating all the nations, you're randomly procedurally generating spells. And so some of these spells do come into play, not on my end so much. I don't really wind up using these a whole lot. This is on the battlefield spell, for example. This is a remote summon, which makes 16 angry giant spiders, but yeah, I don't really use them. I don't really use those particular spells a whole lot, not in this game at least. We also have Oni Generals, which are, what are they called? I have one. Oni Shugos. So yeah, I can summon these guys as well. And they also require fire, so my Pretender can do that. Not that. And then down at the bottom of the list, we've got Dione. That's been sort of a on and off again objective of mine to get Dione, because then I could be in super combatant contesting territory. But it's been kind of hard because I've been using a lot of mages at the end of the game for fighting the Dustwalkers, because I need lots and lots and lots of dust to dust, and I need lots of cleansing water in order to maximize damage. So my research has been sort of going slowly, but it's still on my radar as something that would be cool. And again, my Pretender can make them, but it's a little ways off still. And Wrath of Ancestors. So that's sort of why I took whatchamacallit, the Undying, because when you're proccing the Blood Vengeance, or not Blood Vengeance, Blood Bond, it'll spill over onto Wrath of Ancestors. But again, I haven't actually gotten there, so there's several layers of memes in this particular game that I thought would be fun, but I haven't gotten to yet to see whether it's actually going to be fun. I wound up pretty much rushing Evocation 6 to get Wailing Winds, and my research is sort of meh, so yeah, there you have it. Thaumaturgy, obviously, for Dust to Dust. Alteration for a couple of... I was going for actually Frozen Heart, but Frozen Heart is Alteration 6, so that's a long way off. And then I was like, I want Dione, so I was back and forth. It's a blitz, so when it's a blitz, you're like, what do I want most? What's most important to me? And you wind up flip-flopping every other turn. Well, at least I do. I don't know about you, but that's what I wind up doing. So we're on turn 45, and this is sort of the start of the long form game. I'm going to cut the video here and then come back. We'll go into what I started doing as far as turns, moves, the game state, my objectives, and what my plan is to win. And then we'll see if I pull it off. So I hope that explains where we're at, what the game looks like, and the nations playing, who's playing them, and I hope you'll join me. I hope I'll record it in a semi-timely manner. Sometimes I'm a little bit slower to do such things given my schedule, but with any luck we'll be able to put these turns online, and we'll see. I may or may not win. So wish me luck, and see you later.